Where does this come from, son? You grew up in a gated community your whole life, but he's rapping my life because we romanticize and fantasize about that old thug life, ghetto life.
And so here we go again, back with another one. Welcome to the Dark Times channel. And before I go ahead and get started, make sure you guys go ahead and hit that like button for me. And if you're not new to the channel and you enjoy the content so far on this channel, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me as well. And so let's go ahead and get into it. Recently, former Dallas Cowboys superstar, Hall of Famer, three-time Super Bowl champ, Michael Irvin, came out recently and had some things to say in regards to his son.
I just love Sam Smith. That's the kind of music I listen to. I think because I'm so big and black and hard, they think I listen to all the hard stuff.
But you don't listen to rap?
I do. My son raps. His name is Tut Tarantino.
Wait, what?
My son, right?
What's his name?
He raps under Tut Tarantino. His real name is Elijah Irvin.
Okay.
But listen, get this out. I swear, if you go on iTunes and listen to him, he raps about some of the hardest stuff. You grew up in a 20,000 square foot gated community home. How can you rap this stuff? Where does this stuff come from? You know what I mean?
Your son is using your childhood to rap about.
Oh my God, right. I worked hard to get you out of this. I'm like, oh my God, where does this come from, son? You grew up in a gated community your whole life, but he's rapping my life because we romanticize and fantasize about that old.
Now, the whole reason why this conversation even kickstarted in the first place was because of John Morant. Everybody was chiming in on John Morant and the up-and-coming NBA season. And as everybody knows by now, John Morant is suspended for the first part of the season due to his violation of league policy. And so a lot of people out here right now are using this opportunity, especially within the media, to talk about a greater issue, because it's not just John Morant. We see this going on all across America, and it's nothing new. It's been going on. And it's the age-old tale of everybody wanting to be something that they're not. And so I think it's quite natural for somebody to want to experience something that maybe they have a level of admiration for. However that admiration may come, it may come through listening to music, it may come through watching television, whatever the case may be. Whatever an individual tends to give their attention to, there's always going to be a chance of emulation. And that individual not only wanting to emulate, but also wanting to replicate and act out what it is they're seeing. And so in a sense, you are what you watch, and you are what you listen to. And of course, I'm not telling y'all anything that most of y'all don't already know. And so before I chime in and I give my take on it, of course, I'm not going to absolve any of these young men in any of these situations, because at the end of the day, as we all know, everybody is responsible for his or her own actions. But I will say this, and I'm sure a lot of individuals can attest to what I'm about to talk about, because we all knew that individual growing up, whether it was from school or through some other form of association. We all knew that individual that came from a good family, had a good upbringing, both parents in the household, middle class, maybe even upper middle class, or whatever the case may be. We all knew that individual that chose to be at the block parties, that chose to be hanging out in the hood at the house parties on a Friday night. And they didn't have to be in the parties, and they didn't have to be in the hood. But they wanted to be around people that looked like them. They wanted to fit in where they could get in. And there's nothing wrong with that. You really can't knock that. You really can't knock somebody coming from upper middle class or maybe even upper class wanting to be around people that look like him. And I would probably say that there's two reasons, or at least two main reasons why individuals such as Michael Irvin's son and John Morant feel the need to gravitate towards that certain lifestyle, towards that so-called thug lifestyle. The first reason being is individuals like this, like John Morant, like Michael Irvin's son, are probably looking for something that they're not getting at home. And not a father in this world can look at themselves in the mirror and say that they're beyond scrutiny. Nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes somewhere along the way. And to the best of my knowledge, I believe Michael Irvin has been with the same woman for at least 30 years. And All of his children are from his wife. And so that says a lot, especially when you take into account who he is and his lifestyle and some of the things that he's been through. That says a lot, not just about him, but also about the kind of woman and the kind of wife that he has at home. But that being said, keeping your family together, providing for your family, putting a roof over your family's head, a 20,000 square foot roof at that, that's only half the battle. The other half of the battle is giving your offspring a sense of identity. Because if you don't, something or somebody else will. That's guaranteed. Something and somebody else is going to give your child and your offspring that sense of identity. And in particular, as it pertains to so-called black men, your level of identity or your sense of identity can't be wrapped up in what it is that you do or what it is that you've been able to accomplish in this life, because those things can be taken away at a snap of a finger. And they often are. Maybe your football career is cut short. Maybe your basketball career is cut short, or whatever the case may be. Like in the case of Michael Irvin's son, somebody that tried to follow in his father's footsteps, even went to the U, but for whatever reason, he wasn't able to get to the NFL. And so if your identity is wrapped up in being a football player, that's the problem. And that's the problem a lot of fathers make. In particular, so-called black fathers. Different strokes for different folks. Because like I said earlier, all that stuff can be taken away at a snap of a finger. And then what are you? Just another you know what, as far as society is concerned. And that's the issue. A lot of people can't deal with that. A lot of people can't deal with that reality. They'd rather be anything but that. But at the end of the day, that's how society sees you. And what's better to be? At least to me, what's better than that? But the problem is a lot of these individuals don't have a knowledge of self. They got all kinds of different religions. They got all kinds of accolades, and they're on TV. People know who they are. They have recognition, but at the end of the day, they don't have a knowledge of self. And they're passing these false identities along to their offspring. And it gets all wrapped and warped up in materialism. Of course, there's nothing wrong with having things. There's nothing wrong with wanting things. But if you don't have a knowledge of self, that becomes who you are. And like I said, that can be taken away with a snap of a finger or a mistake, whatever the case may be. Just ask Michael Irvin. If Michael Irvin was playing today, the Michael Irvin from the 80s and 90s, I highly doubt he would have had a long career, especially with all the technology that we have today, the cell phones and all the different cameras, the social media. I doubt somebody like Michael Irvin would have been able to keep his nose clean. No pun intended. He's just now getting out of an incident. He's a magnet for trouble, and a lot of times by no means of his own, but trouble seems to follow him wherever he goes. I'll just say that. And I'm not trying to suggest that Michael Irvin didn't have a close relationship or a personal relationship with his son. I'm not trying to say that at all. I don't know Michael Irvin, so I can't speak on that. But I will say this, a lot of the times you can tell who has the close relationships with their father and intimate relationships with their father based on how they act. Being a black father in this world, you damn near have to be a super dad. Because not only as a black father do you have to guard against just the pitfalls of life, just the pit traps and the pitfalls of life in general that every human being has to avoid. Not only do you have to guard against that, but you have to guard against the messaging, because they've gotten rid of almost every other genre for the so-called black man and woman but rap music. There's no more rhythm and blues. There's no more rock for the so-called black man and woman. And so the main genre, or the main meal that they're giving to these children, is gangster rap music and thought promiscuous music. Our girls don't get a Taylor Swift image. Our boys don't get a Harry Styles image. An image is everything. Image is everything. You're only as good as the image that you can look at. And so that's why I say, being a black father, you damn near have to be a superhero. And a lot of times, if you're doing everything that you can, everything within your capabilities to try to raise a good man or a good woman, that's still not going to be enough. You're still going to go wrong by no fault of your own. But that doesn't make a difference. You still go back and try to make the correction. Because that's what fathers do, just like in the case with Michael Irvin. And so in this sense, I have to salute Michael Irvin. I believe this is Michael Irvin's last attempt to try to get his son back on the right track. Because Michael Irvin, just like the rest of us know, that if his son continues down this path, it's not going to be good. Because the 30 seconds or so that I did spend listening to his son's music, because the kind of stuff that Michael Irvin's son is talking about and the kind of lifestyle that he's trying to portray and this image that he's trying to portray, there's only one way out of that. The kind of stuff that he's talking about invites people to test him. It invites people to see if he really is about that life. And so this is something that Michael Irvin knows. And so by putting his son on blast the way he's done, it's going to take away some of his credibility as a rapper. And hopefully it'll get him to rethink some things, because I'm sure Michael Irvin's had some conversations with his son before, because Michael Irvin's son is not any better or any worse than any of these rappers out here. The only thing that separates a lot of these rappers these days, especially these days when lyrical content is of no consequence, the only thing that separates them is, are you believable? Do people actually believe that you're doing the stuff that you say you're doing? That's it. And so shout out to Michael Irvin for trying to do what he can do to hopefully save his son. One last attempt to try to save his son, and hopefully in the process ruin his rap career. I'm all for people doing what they want to do and having a level of success in whatever it is that they're aspiring to do, except when it's destructive, not only for yourself, but for other people within the community. And so shout out to Michael Irvin for standing up and standing up for his. But if you want to build something that's going to be lasting, if you want to build a strong foundation for that future generation, you're going to have to do more. We have to do more. It's not about being the next great football player, basketball player, lawyer, doctor, great businessman, or whatever have you. It's more than that. Because like I said, those things can be taken away at the drop of a hat. It's about giving your offspring a sense of identity, a sense of belonging, regardless of material things and wealth and status. And that's what a lot of these young men are looking for, especially the ones that have made it, or so-called made it, and that are millionaires, and they have the money and they have the things. But what they're really searching for is a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose. Why am I here? Who am I? So unfortunately, a lot of fathers don't know who they are. And so if they don't know who they are, they for damn sure can't tell their offspring who they are. And so oftentimes, unfortunately, it's going to be up to the individual to do some self-reflection and some digging to find out exactly who they are. When you look at an individual like a Kyrie Irving, you can tell that he got to a place where he is right now through a lot of studying, a lot of time spent in self-reflection. But unless the individual can come to that conclusion, they're always going to be out here searching for something that should have been given to them by their fathers. And so I think that's going to be a good spot to go ahead and close out, but definitely something I wanted to chime in on, because I feel like everybody was going in on Michael Irvin's son, talking about this and that, but nobody was really getting to the root of the issue. And once again, I'm not saying it's Michael Irvin's fault. It is what it is. What's done is done. But a lot of the times, especially when it comes to these former athletes and former entertainers, they're able to provide a certain lifestyle. They're able to give them all the finer things in life. 20,000 square foot home, clothes, shelter, everything. But the one thing that they don't provide is a sense of identity. They're not telling their sons who they are. And so subsequently, the music and the entertainment industry are. Like I said earlier, what you don't do, somebody else will. So that's all I had on this one. Make sure you guys go ahead and hit that like button for me if you haven't done so already. And as usual, peace and chaos.